Hey, everybody out there. Again, we have with us John Woodford to my left here on the screen at the top, and also Kent Garrett, both longtime careers in journalism, and myself, Larry Sperano, of On Target with Larry Sperano. And today's topic is the New York Times apparent turnaround on authenticating the Hunter Biden laptop emails and the implication it has for his father, the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Now, a little bit of history of this. This has been going on for over a year now. And initially, the New York Times, all the mainstream media, all except for Fox News and for the New York Post, were poo-pooing it as Russian disinformation. The White House is saying the same thing. Joe Biden was saying that directly. A lot of hogwash. Garbage is what Joe Biden said, among other things. Jen Psaki repeatedly denied that there was anything to it, Russian disinformation. Well, now, because the New York Times is saying different, everybody thinks, well, maybe there is something to it, because after all, it's a paper record, the New York Times, that was initially disparaging it up until now. So now what they're saying is that this is part of a federal probe into Hunter Biden's unpaid tax bills and some of the via possible violations, including foreign money laundering and lobbying, foreign lobbying violations, which could bring in Joe Biden, since the allegation is that Joe Biden, from some news media, is that Hunter Biden was in favor with Burisma in Ukraine, the energy company, while he was sitting on the board trying to get a meeting with his father for Burisma and other foreign nationals. So in other words, he was lobbying on their behalf for the President of the United States, meeting with them. So that's where the Joe Biden tie-in comes in. So guys.
I mean, Larry, didn't this happen? Wasn't this investigated during the election, as I recall? I mean, I think someone in fact did look at that computer and and found nothing on it. I mean, or am I wrong?
No, that was the story. What happened was, again, almost no media except for Fox and the New York Post were even carrying the story. The others are saying there's nothing to it. Russian disinformation, can't authenticate it. Leslie Stahl on 60 Minutes contradicted Trump in an interview with him that there's nothing to it. But we don't go with this kind of stuff. After all, we're 60 Minutes, and we can't be bothered with this. National Public Radio said the same thing, that we don't want to bother our viewers with disinformation and with stories that make no sense. So they were all poo-pooing it, and there was some analysis from that side of the aisle that it was examined and there was nothing to it. But even at that time, Kent, Hunter Biden never denied that it was his email or the authenticity of those emails. Even at that time, he never denied it. And since then, and more evidence is piling up that indeed it was his laptop, indeed the emails on it are authentic, and now that's included in this federal probe that the New York Times is reporting on. So again, my question is, doesn't this demonstrate how much the media is on board with candidates they favor and out to get candidates that are in their disfavor? Namely, when this was going on before the election, Trump was the bad guy. Joe Biden was the hero that they wanted elected, and probably did help get elected by not carrying this story.
I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense. I mean, if that's the case, but I mean, I thought, as I said before, I thought the Times or someone had looked at those tapes and found that there was indeed, scandalous drug taking or whatever, scandalous sort of stuff on the tape, but nothing that really related to any breaking of federal laws.
That's a story they came up with. Now, I'm not sure who made that analysis, but that was prevalent in the mainstream media.
That was a spin. That was a spin they chose to take, I think. And then they would get unnamed intelligence officials also to minimize it. And so, yeah, they had a whole, response obviously planned on an excuse to bury the story. First, say, oh, there could be something there, but it doesn't have anything to do with Biden or the election or the politics. I mean, they kind of minimized it. I mean, but Biden, he's got to be. I mean, I imagine this is just the way that the crooked politics is done all the time.
Yeah.
With the money making. These how do people go into the presidency or Senate and then they come out multimillionaires?
Right.
Got to be done some way or another. And here they got caught on how they do it. The Clintons. Look at the Clintons.
Yeah.
Well, Larry, what is the timing on the investigation? Was the Justice Department investigation going on during the presidential campaign,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
has it just risen to the level of the New York Times because the investigation has just started?
No, it was going on. It was going on during the campaign, but it was low key. There wasn't much information coming out, and there was hardly any reporting on it. But now the investigation has continued. It's increased. It's blossomed, and now they're tying in what's on those emails to possible violations of. Let me get the exact quote in the New York Times, as well as foreign lobbying and money laundering violations, according to people familiar with the inquiry. So this could, if they play this straight and continue this could directly implicate the president of the United States. And again, Ken, I'm not taking sides on this, for Trump or for Biden.
Right.
What I'm trying to point out is how the media could slant a story one way or another at the expense of the public getting real information.
Not only that, they censored or removed stories that counter this.
Yeah.
It would either prevent them from reaching the public, or take them out of the electronic system.
Yeah.
Facebook and these others, and so it really shows how vulnerable we are to having all of our information controlled with the major information, where they distort it and they poo-poo it, and then they know that the public is only going to pay attention to it for a while.
Right.
And then meanwhile, I imagine they're going to try to seal now Biden off from any of the wrongdoing. They'll have a story that the son's going to have to take the rap. It's just like a gangster operation. Son will take a rap, say his father never knew what he was doing. He did it all on his own.
In fact, Biden has said that repeatedly when he was asked about that during pre-election. He said, "Well, my son doesn't share any of his business activities."
Yeah, right. Yeah, even his mom. Yeah, he's making what is he making $600,000 a month or something like that
From Burisma.
Yeah. Yeah, for his great knowledge of.
He has no background in energy.
No, he doesn't speak the language. Has no background in energy. Knows nothing about anything.
He's on the board of Burisma.
Yeah. He's just a talented kid with a lot of potential.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't give him tons of money?
I mean, at the very least, with the media, going after colorful scandal. I mean, This was a dream for them if they played it straight. Even if you didn't want to get to his father, the president, just his shenanigans. I mean, on the laptop, there's pictures of him smoking a crack pipe, pictures of him having sex with various people, and it goes on and on and on. I mean, that wouldn't be reported if it was one of Trump's kids. They could find that out about.
Yeah, but I mean, I think on other calls, discussions we've had, Larry, we've all agreed that the mainstream media or internet, they're all after clicks, they're after audience, which means that if all the things you say on the tape was there, I mean, why wouldn't they go after publishing it?
Exactly.
I mean, you can't have it both ways, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Which shows you they'll even sacrifice clicks and audience count in order to suppress a story for their favorite candidate, who is Joe Biden. And
I don't know. I always feel it's about the money. The bottom line is the money and the corporation.
Yeah, but they have the presidency. They want the presidency in their camp, and then they'll do anything. And also it also shows, to me, the fear of Bernie Sanders and what his movement
that's a fair
popularity
point.
Meant to the interests, and they would do anything to try to get him out of there, get Biden up there, and put Biden in, rather than have a Democratic Party that would have a Sanders at the head. They wanted, that was their horse. Once they got Biden, now they got him.
It
We
just
got him.
shows you, in a country that supposedly has a free press, how our free press can manipulate stories or squelch stories or report contrary alternative facts that that shape a presidential race. And
Right.
this, supposedly a free press. I mean, yeah, they're free to do whatever the heck they want without.
Now, when we have other stories, such as the Ukraine war,
Yeah.
What do they tell us that's accurate? What are they suppressing? What are they distorting?
In fact, that'll be.
I don't believe any. I'm completely skeptical anytime they come up with anything. My first notion now is to figure out what are they lying or what are they hiding.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, if you're going to talk about the Ukraine, none of their stories even talked about Victoria Nuland there fixing the election in 2014, as if it never happened.
Exactly.
Most of the discussion leading up to this, I mean, no matter what side they take, it's not to say that what Putin did is not a horrendous thing, but come on, just explain the whole situation to people.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you feel like the mainstream media is correctly explaining what's happening on the ground? I mean, they do have correspondents there. I mean, they're on the. I mean, I think they're both doing it, the Russians and.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with you on that, but I mean, I don't know who to turn to for the truth now.
That's the point.
Look at the ones that they won't let on.
Yeah.
The ones that they won't let on TV. People just talking about the facts and the background. Why would you have to have a NATO expanding and menacing someone? Is that really in the interest of our country or not?
Well, what gets me about this is that it's very much, and Larry can probably talk to this too. It's very similar to what happened when we got into Iraq. I mean, it's the same media thing. Yeah, I thought they would have learned from that,
Yeah, they learned how you could put up somebody any way you want, but create a monster like they did Saddam Hussein. Yeah, he was a dictator, this and that. But don't forget, he was our dictator.
He was ours. Yeah, right.
Then he stopped.
Putin came out of Yeltsin. Yeltsin was ours.
Yeah, exactly.
Putin came out of him.
Yeah. And don't forget, Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. His soldiers, when they invaded Kuwait, threw babies out of incubators. Remember those stories? That were totally false. Totally.
Yeah. And Seymour Hersh showed that. I mean, the same thing happened with Syria. Yeah. Where they were talking about germ or biological, some kind of warfare and everything. And Seymour Hersh exploded that story. Boy, you could hardly get that story.
But I mean, so if you're a regular guy having 2 or 3 jobs, working 10 hours a day, I mean, what do you do? What does the ordinary person do about getting the truth of this thing?
I know. I mean, you spend hours and hours researching and trying to get the actual facts. It's very difficult. And don't forget, most people still believe, despite all the realizations of past propaganda that we put out, most people are still pretty much loyal to the U.S., especially in times of war. You rally around the flag and the commander-in-chief, which helps Biden at this point with his ratings, and most people won't question it. I mean, if you just take our side, it's horrible what's going on in Ukraine, and it is, but what's the real story? What led up to it? What's the other part of this that we're not hearing? And plus, if you go on the internet, there is a number of posts that seem fairly credible, that a lot of the video we're getting, it was taken at different times, different incidents and all that, being labeled now as currently what's going on in Ukraine. So again.
But I mean, that's social media. That's not so much the mainstream media.
No, it's shown on mainstream media, even on Fox. Even Fox is drinking on this, except for Tucker Carlson. I don't know how much longer they're going to keep him on the air, because he's the only one contrary to the narrative. And he's questioning, why we should be in Ukraine to begin with and what led up to this, et cetera. He's the only one doing it. Fox itself is on board with this. So, but again, the point is, I don't automatically believe what Russia is saying, but then don't automatically believe what the West is saying either. And it is very difficult to find out what the truth is. And don't forget, there were 50 former intelligence CIA officers, et cetera, who signed that letter during the campaign saying that there was nothing to this Hunter Biden laptop story. Intelligence officials, who know the inside story. Yeah, it's such baloney. As I've said time and time again, there's no objective reporting, real investigative reporting. They're cheerleaders and propagandists.
Yeah.
So where do you go? Where do you go to get the truth? Where do you go for the truth?
Well, I mean, John and I spent a lot of time at alternate media. Now, a lot of that is baloney too. But after a while, you could kind of, which sources are credible, or at least half credible, and which are just, sensational people working out of their basement, throwing out anything.
Yeah.
But, there are some credible analysts that no longer get any airtime on mainstream media who are out there putting, one guy is Greg McGregor, a former Army officer who Tucker Carlson has had on, and Gerald Celente has had him on too, where he's saying, it's a whole phony scenario being played out now that Russia is stymied. Putin is losing the war.
That's what the Times is saying today too.
Yeah, if they don't, they want them to obliterate a place. They would rather than have them, squeeze them. They would rather have a big flare up and an assault. If they don't attack, they say, look at these little weenies. They're getting beat by Ukraine. They won't even wipe them out. So they're sort of saying, hey, if the United States was there against someone like Ukraine, we would have wiped those guys out already.
Well, I mean, look what we've done in our invasions. I mean, look at Baghdad.
For months.
Shock and awe. All kinds of attacks, and that killed a lot of civilians time after time when we went into these places. But that's okay, because God was on our side. Our cause was righteous. But the civilians have to be sacrificed in those countries. Now in Ukraine, oh my God, some civilians are being killed. Well, according to some of the non-aligned analysts, non-mainstream, they're saying that the same radical elements in Ukraine that have been attacking eastern Ukraine, which is largely Russian,
right.
They're the ones who are now put themselves in civilian areas, so that they're firing on Russian soldiers from civilian spots, so the Russian soldiers eventually are have to fire back. But Putin has been trying to avoid that, which is why he hasn't taken over the country yet. He wasn't stymied by Ukraine. He's been stymied by his own restraint in trying to hold back civilian casualties.
Yeah, I would say that's more likely to be accurate.
Well, let's say
got a whole bunch of those squadrons and guys trained. They've been training for knows how many years, and how many CIA and mercenary companies have been involved with their training, and arming, and all of that. They're all in there because you got those guys. These guys that just want to make money fighting, and then you have also there's the crazy, nationalist types. So this is they're in heaven.
But let me ask you this then. I mean, let's revisit the issue of what should be. I agree with you about the mainstream media not putting anything in context, maybe using incorrect imagery and all that. But let's revisit the question as to what should we be doing now. I mean, I think we talked about that on our last session. Have you guys moved your positions any on that? What should we be doing?
You mean
U.S. Biden?
You mean as a country?
Yeah, as a country.
Well, they should be going into the encouraging the talks. Encourage peace talks and figure out a way.
I mean, I think they're doing that.
Have a face-saving conclusion, which is what as early as possible for the parties involved. I mean, the United States has been holding off and delaying and refusing to get involved in talks. But
I think we've been instructing Zelensky to hold off. We want to keep the war going with more destruction of infrastructure and civilian casualties.
You think the U.S. wants to keep the war going?
Oh yeah.
Why?
Look, what they should be doing is telling Zelensky, come to a compromise with Putin. Don't join NATO. Demilitarize Ukraine, and it's over. All this baloney that this is a first step in Putin's
going to conquer Europe. That's kind of bullshit.
Baloney. I mean,
but Putin says he wants territory. He wants to cut up the country. He wants that eastern part of the country.
Don't know. Well, we don't know.
That's on the last demands that I read. yesterday.
but
I mean, and that's unacceptable.
I mean, you're talking about Donbass and that other region?
Yeah, right.
Well, I don't know if he said, I'd have to see what he said and what his language was, because they distorted. They have been saying that they wanted guarantees that those regions would have some sort of, autonomy or independence where they wouldn't be attacked. Don't forget, they started by ruling out the Russian language and assaulting them and killing people there for years.
No, but he said he wants the territory, from what I've read. And again, that
Well,
was as
I'd
of
have to take a look and
last
see
night.
if I was seeing an actual
Quote.
translation by an objective third party to see what language was used.
Yeah, Ken, don't forget, what he did was he recognized the independence of those Donbass regions, which are largely ethnically and Russian, and they speak Russian, and they want to keep Russian. They wanted to join Russia, as a matter of fact. So those are the ones that he wants Western Ukraine to stop attacking. You see, we don't hear that side of the story either.
Or the
That's
history
true.
of it,
Yeah.
which has been going on since 2014, especially.
Yeah.
Once this government came in.
So he wants Eastern Ukraine left alone. He wants Crimea to be secured because that's a vital naval base for them. You know, that would be like the Russians moving into Cuba and kicking us out of Guantanamo. You know, I mean, you got to realize they have strategic interests, vital interests, as we do. So what he wants is demilitarization of Ukraine, so they'd stop pressuring Eastern Ukraine and also threatening Russia because they're close to the border of Russia. So I think those demands are reasonable. And I don't think, this is the first step towards reestablishing the Soviet Empire. I mean,
that's all bunk.
But so tell me once again why you feel the U.S. has a stake in continuing the war.
Because first of all, most cynically is that I think it's improving Biden's approval ratings. Secondly, people again are making money, but all these munitions, all the funds, and who knows where that money is ending up. Who knows if those munitions aren't going to be ended up on the black market. There's all kinds of stuff going. Don't forget, Ukraine is very corrupt. It has been for years and years. And we have a piece of the action. There's a cash cow for politicians and corporations on both sides of the political aisle. That's why we don't want to give it up. And that's why we want to keep this war going. If we're really concerned about the civilians, come to an agreement. I mean, I think it's reasonable what Putin's been asking for.
Yeah,
I don't think what he's been asking for is really a face-saving off-ramp for the Ukrainians, for Zelensky. I mean, that's my thinking on that.
I'm sorry, what do you mean, Ken?
I don't think the fact that he wants the land, I don't think there's an off-ramp for Zelensky yet in terms of what the Russians are.
Zelensky's off-ramp is that you don't have your country wiped out.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have to destroy, there's not going to be, they're going to dismantle so many aspects of their economy and defense, their infrastructure.
I mean, I would agree with you if your argument was that the U.S. wants to damage and debilitate the Russian economy. I mean,
well, they want
that's
that
the
too.
reason they want it.
That too.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they want that too.
Yeah, they want to turn Ukraine at the expense of the population into another Afghanistan that Russia had to pull out of because they spent so much treasure and blood in Afghanistan. So the U.S. and Newland, who was behind all this stuff from the beginning, sees that now. This is a way to bleed Russia, to weaken Russia. The hell with the Ukrainian population.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where do you think the tea leaves say will be a month from now or 2 months from now in terms of Ukraine?
See, I thought it would be, I said a few weeks ago that it'd probably start being wrapped up by now. Now, Putin is turning on the steam more now because he's trying to end it. However, with this influx of men, material from the West, it could keep it going longer. And, if they start a guerrilla type warfare resistance, it could go on. But I still think Putin is going to be able to install his own government in fairly short time. He doesn't want this to extend any longer either. But again, in order to do that, he's got to open fire more severely, which is going to cause more civilian deaths, even though I don't think he wants to do that. I mean, look, is Zelensky not being compared to Churchill? Did Churchill did Churchill require? Did he prevent all men between 18 and 60 from leaving Britain if they wanted to go to fight the Germans in the streets, even though they never got
That's
that?
true. Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Zelensky was an entertainer who, by the way, played the president of Ukraine in his TV series.
Oh, really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Can't make it up, as Rush Limbaugh would say.
Yeah. Wow.
But, Ken, my point is that you can't automatically believe anything from either side. You've got to be skeptical until you come to some kind of understanding, hopefully, of some of the actual facts behind it.
Well, how do you guys feel about the U.S. Well, I guess it's really corporate media or mainstream media taking off RT and a few other independent.
They're afraid of information counter to the master narrative from getting out there.
Yeah.
They don't want.
It seems very gross, very, taking
the precedent. There's nothing they won't do. That's what it shows you.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how they squelch these very stories that we're talking about, Hunter Biden and all that. Jen Psaki admitted that she was talking regularly with Facebook and Zuckerberg's people and all that about controlling those stories, as of course it was disinformation.
Right.
The White House is already colluding with media, especially social media, to control the news.
Yeah, so they call it pollution. They're polluting the information environment.
I mean,
let me ask you this, Larry.
We don't like pollution.
But I mean, are you in this case here? You're going to be eventually on YouTube with this.
Yeah.
Are you worried about being? Are we dispensing disinformation here? Are you worried about that?
I could be yanked off. They already, as I said, they already took down one of my posts. It was a spoof on Biden based on his actual statements, but that was disinformation. They took it off of YouTube. So again, that's another thing. Our outlets are getting fewer and fewer, and we have to be more and more cautious about what we say. Now, the argument is they're private companies, so they could do that. I guess you can make that argument, but this is how people get information beyond the official narrative. So what's going to happen when that's totally controlled, which it's halfway there now?
All right. So what happens? What happens with this broadcast if they deem that what we're saying this afternoon is disinformation?
They might.
What I'm going to do is upload it separately on other platforms that are not linked to YouTube, such as BitChute, where they can't take it down. It'll survive unless those platforms want to take it down. I mean, guys, we've been in the media all our lives. I mean, to me, it's obvious what's happening is this march towards totalitarian media.
It is. Yeah, that's what we're
maybe we should be talking about basketball. Let's change the subject.
I guess, nothing to take down there, unless you're on the wrong team.
Right. On a Russian team or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, you see that they took down somebody recently. Where they had to cancel. Someone was talking about Dostoevsky, and got censored because maybe either the college or someplace or another. There was a course got canceled because it was about something Russian. That's how it is. You're getting into nutty. This is nutland.
Okay, here's
Russian dressing. Restaurants saying they're not going to have Russian dressing.
Well, in Pennsylvania, they took all Russian vodka off the shelves. You can't buy.
Well, that's right. They're doing that too. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
But at least that was made there. I mean, Russian dressing.
That was like
Russians who wouldn't satisfy them by crawling before them to denounce Putin properly, then they wouldn't be able to conduct the symphony or dance in the ballet. I mean, it just shows you how quickly this kind of hysteria hits. And I think it was someone was saying, Goebbels said that the main thing is you tell people that they're under attack or could be under attack by someone or another, and those someone or others also have people among you working with these outsiders, and then the people are ready to accept anything. save us, save us. Oh my God, they're stimulating that kind of response among the public.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I talk to people, who, again, they have work, they have kids to raise, this and that. They're not delving into all of this backstory like we are, so they just accept what they're seeing. And Putin does look like a monster, according
Yeah.
to what they're seeing on TV.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, part of their accepting what they're seeing has to do with the fact, I would think that, we don't have the draft anymore, unlike in Vietnam, for example, where it was your kid or your cousin or your neighbor down the road's kid who was getting killed or in danger in Vietnam. So, I mean,
Putin's
I think
he's causing your gas bill.
Yeah, right. The gas,
at the pump. He's costing you at the pump.
Oh, that's a small sacrifice to make in defense of Ukraine, is what we're being told.
Yeah.
All these war hawks, or should be called chicken hawks. Romney, for instance, he got 4 deferments to get out of service. Yet he's calling for a no-fly zone. He's calling for aggressive action against Putin. Send his own kid over there to fire his back up and go over there and fight.
Tulsi Gabbard, they're saying, oh, she's a traitor.
Yeah.
And Romney's calling her a traitor.
What has she been saying? I haven't followed her.
Well, she just said that there's no reason let's talk about why should NATO say it has to expand towards Russia, knowing that Russia, when pushed into the corner, was likely to do just what it's doing.
Right.
Yeah, and the type of language, a U.S. senator calling her traitors because she expressed that opinion.
Yeah.
Years ago, even the crazy politicians wouldn't be calling somebody a traitor so easily.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that came on with Trump. I mean, that's Trump helped that.
But he's not he's not alone. These so-called liberals are ready with it just as quickly.
All right, Kent, getting back to Trump, how did he start calling people traitors? He talked about fake news, which it turned out to be largely. I mean, did he call people traitors?
I think he did at some point. Yeah.
I'll look it up. I mean, he was very quick
to use the word, as I recall.
Put people up against people. They were threatening the country, they were inside, like the enemy within, and
I mean, as I recall,
McCarthy. He's trained by what's his name? McCarthy.
Roy Cohn.
Yeah, Roy Cohn.
Roy Cohn. Yeah.
But but I think it was more in context, in a larger sense, what he was saying, even though it was bad.
Obama's a foreigner, and all that kind of stuff.
But here, it's just more directly and much quicker. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard's a traitor. It's traitor.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you on that. Yeah. That's a bit much. Yeah.
No, look,
lock her up. I mean, come on, the whole thing about locking up Hillary.
Yeah,
that's calling that helps set this kind of climate. It helped. He's not like was totally responsible for it, but he was in. Let's say the money started getting cheaper, the coinage of democracy. His coming on the scene certainly helped cheapen it.
Okay, but he was wrongly condemned for the very thing that they're engaged in.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, and people
They were unprincipled. That's the problem, is that they were just against him because it was him. They didn't really disagree in principle. Yeah. They do the same thing.
And people keep believing the so-called foreign policy experts, these intelligence officers. They don't remember all the false information we got about Saddam Hussein.
Oh God!
All this stuff.
Colin Powell. Out there with these charts. I laughed at it at the time. You're going to have the charts before the United Nations, and they're showing these drawings.
Yeah.
Cartoon drawings.
Hold up the vial of
arrows and stuff. It's just like what they made fun when Trump had his drawings that he was doing, but Colin Powell had already done the same kind of a thing.
But I mean, don't you think the reporting now was better than during Iraq? I mean, the reporting.
It's worse.
Mainstream media. You think it's worse?
Worse.
It's more pervasive now. More
pervasive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that probably.
I mean, Ken, you talked before about your days at CBS.
Yeah.
30 years ago or more, and even though they had their own prejudice and slants, I thought it was kept pretty much to a minimum back then. It didn't show as much on the air. And
Right.
you said you had like a school marmish editor there who made sure that before.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, no, back in the day at CBS, they had every story that whenever got on the evening news had to be fact checked by this woman. I forget her last name, but her name was Toby, and she was like the terrorist in the newsroom. And you send your story in, and they'd say, "Has Toby checked this yet?" And if you said no, you weren't going to get it on air. And what Toby did is that if you said, "My name is Larry Sperano, I work at XYZ," she would call XYZ and say, "Does Larry Sperano work there?" And if she didn't get that verification, I mean, you were in trouble. You had to either take Larry out or do something like that. But I mean, I think those days are gone. I mean, it was very costly those days. I mean, for example, back then you couldn't, there was a whole issue with 2 cameras in the sense that, let's say you want to get a shot of your stories about a school kids going on the bus to school, and you show up and you have 1 camera, you get a shot of the kids coming out of the bus, getting off the bus, and then normally the second shot, or you might have, well, let's say the first shot is the kids riding the bus. That's your 1 camera thing, and then the second shot. My point is that you couldn't get people to do things again. For example, the better example is that we were doing a piece on astronauts or something in Houston, a profile piece of a guy, I forget his name, but he had this great Corvette car, to fit in with his mode. And so we showed up to get him coming out of his house, getting in his Corvette, driving away. We showed up late one morning. The guy had already done that. And we called New York and said, "Hey, listen, we missed the shot, blah, blah, blah. Can we do it again?" And they said no. We had to stay over a night to get the guy the next morning. And now nowadays that wouldn't happen. They'd say, tell a guy to drive back, tell a guy to go back in his house and come out again. I mean, it was those were the standards back in the day.
Yeah, you're not making a movie.
Right.
News.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, the same thing works in the print where they're having, as Larry and I've said, you can look in the stories and they'll be telling you what someone thinks or what someone's motive is with no verification whatsoever. The reporter is injecting this stuff into the story, and that used to be a no-no.
Unless you qualified it, unless you set it up.
No, they're interpreting stuff and giving motives. They're going to tell you what Putin's really thinking, that kind of a thing. I mean, it's all over the place. There's no limits to what they might do in concocting the story, as long as it comes out the way they want it to come out.
And again, beyond slanting the news and suppressing stories, there's another real danger here, that things can get out of control, through miscalculation, a mistake, misinterpretation, or somebody going haywire. And then what? We're going to get engaged in a direct war with Russia, and where will that lead?
Yeah, with all those bombs.
I mean, it's the longer this lasts, the more I think we're playing on the edge of things, which is extremely dangerous. So we'll see how this turns out. But okay, guys, this is our latest note on what's going on in the world and our view of it.
I hope you don't get
you didn't even get to the earth-shaking issue of Jesse Smollett's release.
Oh yeah. Tell me about that. I don't know much about that, but basically,
that'll be next. That'll be next. Let's wrap this up for now.
All right.
Right.
Okay, Ken.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. See you guys later.
Okay.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Yep.